there's a moment they never prepare for, the moment the mask slips. The moment you finally see them. Not the charming smile, not the carefully crafted confidence, not the endless stories that made you question your own memory, but the truth. Raw, terrifying, unmasked. The truth has a way of burning through illusion. And when you expose a narcissist, when you stop feeding the fantasy they built around your love, something inside them begins to crumble. Not because they feel guilt the way you do, but because their reflection shatters. They've spent their life chasing mirrors that worship them, and suddenly, one mirror refuses to reflect back the lie. And deep inside, a silent war begins. You might think they simply move on. You might believe they never cared, never hurt, never looked back. But the truth? After exposure, they don't sleep the same. They replay moments, not because they miss you, but because their control has been broken. They battle a voice they've long buried, the voice that whispers, "What if they were right about me?" They'll fight that voice, deny it, project it, but it echoes in the quiet. Because beneath the arrogance, beneath the manipulation and coldness, there is a fragile child who learned that love was power, and losing power feels like death. This isn't a story of sympathy. It's a story of understanding. So you can stop wondering why they acted like you never mattered. So you can stop questioning if the love was real. So you can see the secret storm they'll never admit. In this reflection, you'll hear what happens after the game ends. What happens when a narcissist faces exposure and the image they worship starts to rot. And maybe, just maybe, you'll feel the closure they'll never give. So if you've ever walked away from someone who made you doubt your worth, if you've ever stood in the wreckage of manipulation, wondering if they ever felt anything real, stay here with me. Because tonight, we walk through the battlefield they hide from the world. And by the end, you'll no longer crave their apology. You'll understand their silence for what it truly is, a war they can't win. Before we begin, take a breath. If this message finds you, it's not by accident. You're here because your heart deserves clarity. So if this speaks to you, if it touches a truth you've lived, you can gently tap subscribe or share it with someone who needs to hear they're not crazy, they're healing. Not because you owe me anything, but because your story deserves to be seen. Now, let's step inside the storm. They don't show it. They never do. When the truth comes out, when the curtain falls and their carefully curated image begins to crack on the surface, they appear composed, almost indifferent. Maybe they smirk, maybe they shrug, maybe they even say, "You're overreacting." But inside, there's chaos. The exposure is like a wound they can't cauterize. It's not the same kind of pain you feel. It's not sorrow or regret. It's humiliation. You see, for a narcissist, reality isn't truth. It's performance. And when someone refuses to play their script, when the audience walks away mid-scene, it's not just rejection, it's annihilation, because their entire identity is built on how others see them. The first battle begins with denial. They'll tell themselves you're wrong. They'll rewrite the story so they're still the hero and you're the bitter one who misunderstood. They'll run from the truth, twisting it into something more tolerable, because accepting it would mean facing the emptiness they've been avoiding all their life. And yet, late at night, when their phone is silent and their mind begins to echo, the mask slips further. A quiet thought surfaces. What if they saw the real me? That thought is unbearable. So they fight it with distraction, new admirers, new conquests, new stories. They'll flood their lives with noise because silence is too dangerous. Silence reveals the truth they're desperate to bury. But still, deep down, there's that flicker. A haunting awareness that the one person who truly saw them walked away. And in that absence, they feel something they cannot name. It's not love, it's loss of control. It's the panic of a soul with no anchor. They replay conversations not to understand but to weaponize. They wonder, where did I lose them? Not because they want to grow, but because they need to restore power. They can't stand the thought of you holding the final word. And yet, What they'll never confess is this: exposure reminds them of something they've tried to forget, that their entire world is built on illusion, and every illusion eventually falls apart. You were the mirror that refused to lie. You stopped nodding to their stories. You started saying no. And that no echoed louder than any scream. It told them they were no longer the god in your universe. And for a narcissist, that's the deepest wound of all. Still, don't mistake their silence for peace. Inside, there's a restless war, a battle between the false self and the fragile one buried beneath decades of denial. They will do anything to drown it, anything to prove they're still in control. But control is slipping, because once seen, the truth cannot be unseen. And you, whether they admit it or not, are now the one thing they can't forget. Not because you belong to them, but because you escaped. They will try to rewrite you. In their mind, the story must end on their terms, never yours. So they'll twist your truth into betrayal. They'll tell others you were unstable, dramatic, cruel. They'll smear your name to restore their image, not because they hate you, but because they can't bear the idea that you hold the power of truth. To them, control is survival, and losing control feels like death. Yet, even as they paint you as the villain, they cannot silence the voice inside, the one whispering in the shadows, "Why did they see through me? Why couldn't I keep them?" It's not love that haunts them, it's exposure. You became a mirror too honest to tolerate, reflecting not their fantasy, but their fractures. In the quiet moments, when their new audience grows tired, when the laughter fades, when the lights dim, and no one's watching, they face what they fear most, themselves. And in that silence, they glimpse the truth they've buried under layers of charm, manipulation, and blame. A truth that whispers, "You are not who you pretend to be." This is the secret battle no one sees. Because to the world, they're confident, untouchable, thriving, but beneath the surface, they're haunted by the ghosts of every person who saw through the illusion. Every time someone walks away with eyes wide open, it cracks the armor a little more. And you might still wonder if they ever cared, if the love they promised meant anything. But here's the truth: they cared about the reflection you gave them, not the connection you craved. They loved how you made them feel powerful, admired, whole. But when you began to question, when you began to stand up, you became a threat not to their heart, but to their mask. So they discard, deny, disappear. But the story doesn't end there, because even as they run, they carry the echo of your departure, the first time someone refused to worship their false self. And that echo, it follows them into every new relationship, every empty victory, every hollow moment they try to fill. You see, when a narcissist is exposed, their greatest fear comes true. The illusion breaks, and without illusion, they are no one. They'll seek new mirrors, new admirers, new victims to restore the fantasy. But deep inside, a wound remains, a wound only truth can create. And while they'll never admit it, they remember you. Not with tenderness, but with unease. Because you are proof that they can be seen. And being seen is unbearable. So if you're healing, wondering if they've changed, if they miss you, if they finally understand, know this: their battle isn't about love, it's about survival. And you are no longer a part of the story they're trying to rewrite. You've stepped out of their script, and that's what makes you free. Freedom has a strange way of feeling lonely at first. You walk away from the fire, but the warmth lingers, and so does the smoke. There are nights you'll question if you imagined it all. Because how can someone who once looked at you with such intensity now act as if you never existed? How can silence feel so cruel? But what you're really hearing is not indifference, it's defense. You've become a reminder of what they can't face, and they'd rather erase you than confront their own reflection. Inside their mind, the battle rages on. One voice screams, "You were right to wear the mask. The world is cruel. Never show weakness." The other whispers, "But why does it hurt?" That whisper is the buried child, the one who once begged for love and was met with rejection, shame, or neglect. The child who learned to survive by pretending, by performing, by controlling the story so no one could control them again. You touched that buried child when you loved them. You saw the cracks, the fear, the fleeting moments of tenderness they tried so hard to hide. And for a moment, it terrified them because you came too close to the truth. After exposure, that child becomes restless. Memories they've buried start to stir. The face of the parent who never saw them, the first heartbreak that shattered them, the moments that taught them love equals pain, and vulnerability means danger. They try to silence it all by running faster, speaking louder, building walls higher. But the truth keeps knocking, and yet, don't be fooled. They'll disguise the war as victory. They'll post the smiles, the new relationships, the wins, because if the world believes they've won, maybe they can believe it too. But behind closed doors, when the noise fades, they feel it, the emptiness creeping in, whispering that everything they build is made of smoke. And here's the paradox. They'll never escape. The more they fight to protect the false self, the further they drift from the real one. They long to be loved, but they fear being seen. They crave connection, yet destroy anyone who tries to get close. They want to be admired, but admiration only feeds the mask, and the mask is starving them. So they oscillate between pride and panic, between claiming power and fearing collapse, between convincing themselves they don't need anyone and secretly mourning the ones who saw through the illusion. You were one of them. You pierced the armor, and for that they both resent and remember you. Not because they hate you, but because your truth exposed their lie. And no matter how many stories they rewrite, that truth remains carved into their memory. You were not the wound. You were the mirror. And in your reflection, they glimpsed what they've spent a lifetime running from. But what happens when the mirrors run out? When every admirer starts asking questions. When every new love begins to see the patterns. When every mask starts to crack under the weight of its own lies. The narcissist faces a crossroads they've spent their whole life avoiding. Either confront the emptiness or build another illusion to bury it. Most choose the illusion, because truth feels like drowning, and they've built their identity on staying afloat no matter who they push under to do it. But here's what they don't expect. Exposure leaves a scar. Once someone truly sees them, it becomes harder to maintain the fantasy. They begin to sense the instability inside the cracks they can't fully repair. And though they pretend nothing's wrong, the reflection no longer comforts them. The mask no longer fits as seamlessly as before. So they become restless, suspicious. They start projecting their shame onto others, accusing them of betrayal, disloyalty, disrespect. Every relationship becomes a battlefield, because inside they're at war with themselves. They'll seek validation endlessly, but none of it lasts. Every compliment fades too quickly. Every admirer feels replaceable. Because what they truly crave isn't praise. It's proof they still exist. And when you exposed them, you took that proof away. You shattered the illusion that they were untouchable, superior, invincible. They may tell themselves they've moved on. They may boast of new love, new success, new peace. But deep down, there's a haunting truth. They can't forget the one who saw them, not with adoration, but with clarity. You see, clarity is powerful. It pierces through illusion. It holds up a mirror that no lie can fog. And that mirror your courage to see and walk away becomes the one thing they can't destroy. Still, they try. They rewrite you in their mind as cruel, ungrateful, toxic. Because if they can make you the villain, they don't have to face the truth that they were the architect of their own downfall. But when the anger fades, when no one's left to blame, they're left staring at their reflection again, still fractured, still lost, still hungry for a love they don't know how to receive. And here's the quiet irony. They fear exposure, yet they long to be understood. They crave intimacy, yet destroy it. They ache for love, yet flee from it, because love demands honesty, and honesty is their greatest terror. So what happens inside a narcissist after exposure? They fight, not with you, but with themselves. They wage war on the truth, drown in the silence, and build new illusions to outrun the shame. But the truth remains an echo they can't erase. And you are no longer part of their chaos. You walked through the fire, and now you know it was never your job to save someone who refuses to see themselves. You were never the villain. You were the awakening. And awakening is never gentle. It's the sound of shattering glass. It's the silence that follows a storm, where everything looks the same but nothing feels familiar. For them, it's unbearable. For you, it's liberation disguised as loss. After exposure, the narcissist enters a void they can't name. They may laugh louder, post more, surround themselves with admirers who nod on cue. But beneath every performance is a trembling question. What if they were right about me? They'll never ask it aloud. To do so would mean letting light touch the darkness they've buried. And yet, in rare, fleeting moments between the noise, between the masks, something stirs. A memory, a face, a truth. They'll remember the way your eyes changed when you finally saw through them. Not with hate, but with clarity. And that memory haunts them not because they miss your love, but because they miss the reflection of power they once saw in your gaze. So they search for replacements, faces that shine with admiration, hearts that bend without question. But no matter how many new mirrors they find, none reflect the illusion quite the same. Because something inside them has cracked. And once a mask cracks, it never fits the same again. They'll grow paranoid. They'll test people, push them, provoke them, seeking proof that the world still believes in their perfection. But deep down, they know the truth. Every new admirer is a fragile thread holding together a collapsing identity. And each time someone leaves, the echo grows louder. Still, they won't surrender. Not yet. Because surrender means facing the pain they've spent a lifetime denying. The loneliness they've disguised as pride. The fear they've dressed as confidence. The longing they've buried beneath control. But no matter how far they run, the battle follows. It's in every moment of silence, every restless night, every glance at a mirror that no longer lies. You may wonder if they'll ever change, if this war inside could one day lead to awakening. And sometimes, for a few rare souls, it does. When the illusions finally collapse, when there's no one left to blame, when the pain becomes too heavy to outrun, they might look inward. They might reach for help. They might begin the long, trembling path toward truth. But for most, the fear wins. They rebuild the mask, sharper, shinier, more convincing than before. And the cycle continues, new faces, new wounds, new escapes. Yet even then, a part of them remembers you, not with warmth, but with unease. Because you are the proof that love can't be controlled. That truth can't be rewritten. That masks always crack under the weight of reality. You were the turning point they'll never admit, the ghost that whispers, "You were seen." And for someone who's lived their whole life hiding, being seen is the most terrifying thing of all. And so, they live haunted, not by your absence, but by what your presence revealed. Because you were not just another chapter, they built a whole illusion around you. You were the believer, the healer, the mirror they needed to sustain the lie. And when you saw through it, when you stopped playing your part, you didn't just leave, you ended their world as they knew it. To them, exposure is not a single moment, it's an unraveling. It's every word you spoke echoing back when they try to sleep. It's every boundary you drew replaying in their mind as defiance. It's the unbearable truth that someone saw their deepest shame and lived to tell it by walking away. So they try to erase you. They erase the photos, the memories, the traces of your voice. They erase the truth by rewriting the story. Because if they can convince others you are cruel, unstable, ungrateful, maybe they can convince themselves. But lies have a way of collapsing under their own weight. And even when the world believes them, they know. They know you were the one who saw the fracture and refused to pretend it was whole. And here's the part they'll never confess. They envy you. Your courage to face truth, your strength to walk away, your willingness to feel what they've run from all their life. They'll call it weakness, but secretly, they wish they could do the same. They wish they could feel without breaking, love without losing control, apologize without collapsing. But vulnerability to them feels like standing unarmed in a battlefield. So they armor up again, charm sharper, smiles wider, stories smoother. Yet beneath it all, the same battle rages the war between who they pretend to be and the emptiness underneath. You may see them years later, appearing unchanged, a familiar glow of confidence, a new admirer by their side. But look closer. Behind the laughter, there's still the flicker of fear, the desperate eyes searching for reassurance that they still matter, that they're still powerful, that the illusion still holds. And sometimes, late at night, they scroll through memories they swore they deleted, not because they miss love, but because they miss the reflection of themselves they once saw in your eyes, a reflection they'll never find again. You became the scar they can't show, the truth they can't unhear, the mirror they can't destroy. So while you heal, learning to trust again, to breathe again, to love without shrinking, they remain trapped in their own performance, applauded but unseen, surrounded but alone, admired but hollow. And though they'll never say it, they know. When you expose them, you didn't ruin them. You revealed what was already broken. And that truth, it's the one thing they'll never escape. But you are no longer bound to their war. You've stepped outside the storm that once consumed you, the whirlwind of confusion and charm, the endless cycle of hope and hurt. And though the silence they left behind still echoes, it's in that silence you begin to hear something new, your own voice. It's shaky at first, uncertain, as if waking from a long sleep. But it's real. It's honest. It doesn't twist truth to be loved. It doesn't shrink to feel safe. It simply says, I am. You start to see how much you gave, how deeply you loved, how fiercely you tried to understand someone who could not understand themselves. You see how you mistook their wounds for depth, their control for care, their chaos for passion. And you begin to grieve not just for what you lost, but for what you endured believing it was love. But healing is not a straight line. Some days you'll still wonder, do they think of me? Other days you'll catch yourself scanning their life from afar, searching for signs of regret, of awakening. It's human. You wanted it to mean something. You wanted to believe love could change them. But love can't reach someone who's hiding behind walls of denial. So instead, you start choosing truth. You start choosing peace over drama, self-respect over approval, quiet over chaos. You begin to understand that closure doesn't come from them, it comes from clarity. And the greatest clarity is knowing it was never your job to heal a heart that refuses to open. Meanwhile, they keep searching, chasing admiration, rewriting history, drowning their reflection in noise. Every mask they wear grows heavier, every performance emptier, because you can't escape a war that lives inside you, and they, still unwilling to face it, remain trapped in their own creation. You, however, are becoming something they'll never be free. Free from their story, free from their lies, free from the need to be seen by someone who never truly looked. And one day, you'll feel it, a quiet peace where pain used to live, a soft strength blooming where you once bent, and in that moment you'll realize you were never meant to stay in their chaos. You were meant to break the cycle, to walk away, to become the mirror that no longer reflects their illusion, but your truth. So if you still ache, let it ache. It means your heart is healing honestly without masks, without games. And every tear, every breath, every boundary you build is a step closer to the life they could never give you. Because while they keep fighting the truth, you've already found it. And that is the real victory. Thank you for walking with me through this story. If these words touch something deep inside you, if they helped you see your experience with clearer eyes, take a moment to honor your journey. You're not alone. You're healing. And your truth deserves to be heard. If this message resonated, you can gently subscribe, share, or leave a thought below, not out of obligation, but because someone else out there is still lost in the illusion, waiting to hear they're not crazy, they're awakening. Take a deep breath. You are free now. You are seen. You are whole.